Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. Uh, Thank you to the panel, to the witnesses, the panelists today for their testimony. I do want to echo some of my colleagues. I think it would be invaluable to have parents come up here directly that homeschool children. I would like to have heard their testimony. I think it was important testimony that would be very useful to the committee, to our committees, particularly with there's actually a group of homeschool parents that educate the kids collectively on the different history lessons, and they make it sort of interactive and fun. I believe they took a field trip right up to our state capitol. So um, hearing from them, and also there was a constituent who's a public school teacher, uh, and a constituent of mine who homeschools his child. I think hearing from somebody that's from the inside in our public schools who decides to homeschool their child, I think we should have heard that testimony as well. Somebody who is more than willing to testify. With that, I do have a couple of questions. Um, the first one is for Commissioner Hill Lilly, DCF Commissioner. The Education Commissioner, she would like to ring in as well on this. But Commissioner Hill Lilly, it is good to see you. My question was during your presentation. You a couple of terms I have for you is that you throw out in the slides was educational neglect and equivalent instruction. My question is how are you defining what equivalent instruction is and what educational neglect is?
Um, Thank you. Hello, good to see you, and thank you for that question. You know, I think you're hitting at the heart of probably why we're here. I mean, it was to hear from Commissioner Russell Tucker about what is currently in our guidelines and then what's missing in terms of standards. And so once we become very clear, or once we have an agreed upon standard of practice for what we mean by equivalent instruction and what is adequate, then the department can make some determinations as to whether or not it meets that standard and therefore is a contributor towards educational neglect. I think you hit the heart of why we're here, is to make sure that those standards are clear. And educational neglect is really around denying a child opportunity to engage in educational instruction. That's when you have educational neglect, and it's by the parents doing, not because of it's, which is different from truant and different from truancy. A lot of people mix that up. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you certainly touched on it. Commissioner, my concern is particularly with equivalent instruction, is how are we measuring equivalent instruction? One of the reasons a lot of parents are pulling children out of schools is they don't like some of the curriculum as it relates to how they want to raise their children, and with particularly on social issues, on certain societal issues, namely perhaps social emotional learning. We just heard a bill in the Children's Committee on what type of material, some very graphic material that can be in school libraries, that can also be brought into perhaps certain curriculums in the schools. And would parents be required, if parents are saying they don't want their children, their very young children, exposed to that, they want to raise their children differently, and something that they can look at maybe perhaps later in life, but that's something they don't want their children exposed to at a young age. That's why they're electing to homeschool their children, and not expose them to that material. I think parents should have that right to do that, and be able to educate their children accordingly. And again, if they don't, is that considered a form of are they failing equivalent instruction? And is that a form of educational neglect? And that's very concerning to me. That those are some of the very reasons that our parents are taking their children out of schools is based on some of the curriculum, some of the material that they find offensive, and they want to raise their children separately. So I want to be very clear on that. That I'm very concerned, particularly if we write this, if this language gets written sort of quickly and we don't fully understand all the consequences of putting something like that in there. My other question is for Fran Rabinowitz. How are you, Fran?
Oops, fine.
And
How are you?
my very good, thanks. My question relates to the you had mentioned during your testimony the health form, um, an annual health form needs to be submitted or should be submitted by the homeschooled child's pediatrician. I'm just curious, what would be some of the criteria, some of the things that you would like to have specifically on that form, that annual form?
Well, I think it would mirror the form that we use right now in public schools, and it would be the parent taking the child to the pediatrician completing the form, and the parent bringing the form in. I think it's it's on eyesight, hearing, weight, um, uh, height, etc. And just that the child is in good health or the child has allergies, etc. And we require that not every year, although most parents do annual physicals. We just require it in kindergarten, grade 6, and grade 9. Um, the other thing, if I could answer one thing with you on equivalent instruction, if you don't mind, I would say to you that parents that homeschool their children do agree to follow Connecticut standards. So, for instance, if we say that a child is reading by the end of grade 1, we would hope that homeschoolers are following that as well. But the curriculum that they use and the books that they use are really up to them, not to us. But the Connecticut state standards, whatever that is in mathematics and science for each grade level, we assume that those standards are being followed. But as I said when I spoke earlier, we don't want to determine the curriculum. And in fact, they may bring us many good ideas about how those things could be taught better. I just feel sometimes I'm a bit jealous because the homeschool parents have the opportunity to do a lot of hands-on, like coming to the Capitol and etc. Where we're not as we sometimes don't have the resources to do that. So I hope you don't mind, but I just had to add to that.
I would like
No,
to keep, excuse me, Representative, I'm sorry, just one second. It's not you, Representative. I just want to say for the commissioners, I like to keep us on topic of the representative's question. That question can come up again from another representative, but to be respectful to his question, I'd like to stay on that topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, I appreciate both of those responses. My concern too is DCF going to be on the same page that you're on, the same page that SDE is on, and again, I think we've got to be very careful, when it relates to educational equivalency, equivalent instruction, that's not interpreted as some of the material that the parents find objectionable gets they essentially be forced to teach their children. Just on a follow-up on the health form portion of this, which I originally asked you. Um, One of the reasons many parents are homeschooling their children is due to when we remove the religious exemption for vaccines. That even one of the vaccines on the I think it's like 75 plus vaccine schedules. If they don't want to give that to their child for whatever reason, they're now homeschooling their children. Would the vaccine schedule or what vaccines are given or not given their child be required on that health form specifically?
I'm not 100% sure, Representative, but I would imagine it is. However, homeschoolers do not have to abide by that if they're not sending their children to public schools.
That's certainly true in the immediate. My concern is where's the ship heading? Where are we going from here? If that's required on the form, that sort of material. Um, what are we where are we going with this? So, but thank you for that answer, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I appreciate it. Appreciate your indulgence letting me speak remotely here. And I think I've exceeded my 2 questions.